podcast. Shut up.
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning somewhere.
for December 4th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, sitting right over there. She just declared marital law. It's Ashley Burns. Hi to Ashley, everybody.
I'm so sorry. I was going for Marshall, but I'm dyslexic.
Yeah, I have to admit how many times I read martial law yesterday, and I read it as marital initially. I don't know why.
Have I got you worried, Burns?
No, we're fine. We're fine. And if you do declare marital law, I'm sure it only lasts for like 20 minutes or whatever the hell happened. We're, of course, talking about yesterday, weirdest news cycle, one of these almost enormous events in history that if you blinked, you might have missed it because it didn't actually end up happening. Yesterday, the South Korean president declared martial law. Then the parliament, which was shut down, they broke in to the building. The military showed up to try to stop him. All of this happened within about an hour and a half, and it was wild to watch all the headlines and all the posts coming through, Ashley, of this event that was taking place in real time.
Yeah, and there have been a couple of these really almost events happening over the past year. First of all, congratulations to South Korea for sneaking in right at the last minute as a contender for biggest news stories of the year. But a while ago, was it last year? I think this happened with was it the Wagner Group in Russia where they marched on Moscow and then didn't?
Right. There was this 6-hour period where the Wagner Group had basically just turned around and was heading in towards Moscow. And if you were awake at the time when this was taking place, it seemed like you were watching potentially one of the biggest events in modern history. And it kind of felt that way with South Korea as well. But then it just didn't happen. And yeah, I agree with you. We kind of jinxed ourselves yesterday, didn't we, by talking about our biggest news story of 2024 and how there couldn't possibly be anything left in this year. And then South Korea just shows up with this wild story yesterday.
Well, Bernie, believe it or not, also, this is not the only coup attempt of this year. Do you remember there was one that happened and then didn't happen in, I think it was Bolivia.
Yeah.
Or it was June, I think. So this seems to be catching. Watch out.
Well,
we don't know if it's contagious.
It's kind of weird too, because when you see it from the outside, it seems like something that's definitely happening. I'm sure a lot of people, when they saw the January 6 events after the election in the U.S., I'm sure there was a lot of people who thought oh, this is it. Now this right here is the beginning of a civil war or something like that. It's weird how these things happen, or in the case of all of these, how they don't happen.
Yeah, so I'm going to be really interested to see what the fallout for this thing in South Korea ends up looking like. I know that the parliament immediately voted to basically revoke the national or the martial law mandate, and now there's a lot of people stepping down. It's a whole mess. It's going to take some time to sort out, I think. So it could be that many years later, even South Korea will be feeling this the same way that the U.S. is still sort of reeling from January 6th in its own
And even
way.
now, 12 hours later, a lot of the conversation around this is pretty speculative. We do know that the parliament voted to rescind the martial law order unanimously. It was whatever their parliament is, 190-0. We do know that the military initially sided with the president as well, because that's what the declaration of martial law is. He has dissolved the parliament. We have to side with the president. There was even speculation that they didn't have a choice but to do that, because if they went against the president during a martial law declaration, then they would be seen as attempting a coup themselves. And it was all the speculation, everyone just wildly speculating as to what was going on. So you're right. It'll be very interesting to see the details of this sort themselves out. But it's I can't help but think South Korea today is kind of like that friend who got too drunk at a party, and the next day they're like, wow, things got pretty crazy yesterday.
It's crazy night, right? And everyone is just looking at them
it's all you, buddy.
we know what you did. Can you imagine though, if you decided you had a long day, you're in South Korea, you're you know what, I'm gonna go to bed a little bit early tonight. You wake up in the morning to this. What did you guys do last night while I was sleeping?
Actually, this was such a quick, came out of nowhere, and the declaration came in, and then the reaction was so quick, and then the reaction and all the back and forth. It all happened so fast. If you were busy on a conference call, you might have missed all of this entirely. It's crazy. Yeah, I like the idea too of like a bunch of countries getting together and having like an intervention for South Korea. Like, man, you got to get yourself under control. And South Korea would look at the U.S. and go, "Why are you here? I got to get my behavior under control. Look at you guys." But I would do want to point
Russia
out
and Bolivia are there, and they're like, "Hey, I'm feeling attacked right now." What's a little attempted coup between?
Why don't you turn that lens back on yourself? I do want to point out something that did happen though, which I feel like to have a balanced discussion about some of the other things we talk about on a regular basis. It's important to point this out. Is that when this was taking place on the Korean exchanges, Bitcoin crashed. It went from it crashed down about 25-30% depending on where you look. It went down to about 70,000 was the price point for Bitcoin, or some.
And for that is a pretty severe crash for where Bitcoin has been in recent.
Yeah, it's about 25-30%, and I just have to point out that one of the things people talk about with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is that when the dollar collapses and the governments fold in on themselves and things like that, Bitcoin is going to be here to save the day, and yet there's no real world case study where that's been the case. Anytime there's a major disaster like a pandemic or a government upheaval or something like that, people sell their Bitcoin instantly. And it's interesting. And we could be in the middle of a transition where that slowly becomes true. But people often, when they talk about cryptocurrency, they state a lot of things that are speculation as fact. And one of the things they often state as fact is that Bitcoin will outsurvive all the fiat currency and things like that. There's just been no example of that happening ever so far. And I feel compelled that I have to point that out. But while we're talking about technology and money, I want to point something else out as well, Ashley. Big conversation this last year has been inflation. I am currently in the market. I'm buying you a laptop. I don't know why I took this on that I'm buying your laptop, but I'm doing that.
I appreciate you doing this for me. It's just, you know what it is, Bernie. You're sharing in the mental load.
I guess so. But I had to point out something. Being into tech nerdy stuff has a weird kind of like benefit of being almost inflation proof, because I'm looking at laptops. We haven't bought a laptop in what, Ashley, about 6 years, would you say?
It's been a really long time. We've been very fortunate as well in that we have received laptops from Microsoft. And before that, I think we'd had some from Razer and things. So it's been a while since we've put our own money into laptops.
But a laptop now, like the laptop I'm looking at you, I'm trying to get something that's going to be a little bit future proof, so we don't have to do this again for another 6 years. And I feel like I'm buying something that's pretty top of the line, and it's about $2,000. And to me, a laptop has been about $1,500 to $2,000 for the last 25 years. Would you agree with that?
I would. And like you said, that's sort of like the high-end stuff, the sort of top of the line, like I can play video games on this thing.
The laptop you're getting is not like an Alienware. Those are like $3,500. And those laptops have always existed as well, too. I mean, you have a good laptop, this one that you're using, but it's more so for like production stuff as well. So it's a good like worktop, desktop workstation style of laptop. But there's even the more expensive ones. But I feel like at this point in time that those should be like $10,000, if they've kept up with inflation.
Oh, you mean the way that the prices of everything else have gone up? For sure. It's it's not just that. I feel like the price of like video game consoles it's gone up a little bit, but not nearly as much as the price of, I feel like, all of the other things around us. Video games, I remember when I was younger, they were $50. Now, 30 years later, they're $70. So it's gone up, but not nearly as much as the price of so many other things around us.
When were games $50 that you remember? Because I always remember them being 60 ever since like 20 years ago. They were 60.
No, it was a big deal when they went up to 60. That was, I think, like when the Xbox 360 came out, they went up to 60. It was like a generational thing. So I may be mixing up 360 and no, it had to be the 360, where some of them started being $60, and then that was the sort of shift there. And then more recently, a lot of them have made the shift to $70. Of course, there's also much more of a middle ground than I feel like there used to be, where there's a lot of like the smaller and the indie games that are $20, $30. And then, of course, there's the free-to-play games as a service type games. So there's a lot more range now. But even so, that sort of standard retail price of $70 is not nearly as high an increase over the last like 30 years as everything else in our life.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy too. And it's like the other thing about it too is the the technology that we're using is getting better. You know, it's not like the food we're getting is, you know, getting more calorie efficient or anything like that. We're seeing an increase in the quality of the products, and yet the price doesn't go up. But anyway, it's just something I was thinking about. It's a really bizarre thing.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I'm on Soylent Green.
I mean, even
as efficient as you can get.
Even movie tickets have gone up in price. We've been going to the movies lately, and we've been a little shocked at how much the box office tickets have gone up.
Yeah, they have. In fact, I treated myself to Wicked. So, you know, we've been discussing at length Wicked's chances of getting into the top 10 movies of the year. And we've been talking about the kind of legs that it's had. And I've seen so many amazing things about it, like so many people being like, I was a doubter, I went in, I came out, and now I'm a believer. I took myself to see it, and I'm really glad that I did. It's fantastic, Burnie. I don't know that you need to go see it in theaters. I don't know that it's for you. Like, I don't know that's your type of enjoyment, but I need you to watch it when it finally comes to video so that I can go at you about all the fun things in it. It's really brilliant.
What did you, if I may ask?
And I don't mean like Cats.
What? Oh, Cats the musical? Yeah, that thing. I think a lot of people hate watched that movie by the end of it. But what is your background with Wicked? Did you read the book? Did you go see it in the theater when it was a stage play?
Yeah, so both. So when I was much younger, I read the book, and it's been so long that I remember only the most sort of vague outline of what happened in that book. But I did also go to see it when it was in the theater. I didn't see it on Broadway, but I saw it when I was living in Sydney. So I did see a stage production of it, and it really is. It's a great musical. But what sets the movie apart is that. So as an example, you saw Hamilton when it was a big deal on Disney+.
I did.
It came out, and it was this wonderful production of Hamilton, but it was still a stage production, right? This is very much a movie adaptation, so they do the most with what they have as far as like cinematography and camera angles, and all the things that you can do in a movie that you can't do in a stage production. You get all these close-ups with characters, so you can really see a lot of nuance in their portrayals and the emotions and everything. And also, because it's a movie, they can do absolutely bonkers stuff. Most of the sets in this movie were practical, so they actually built them out. So people are dancing around on all kinds of real things. They planted, Burnie, they love to talk about this in the press at the moment, 9 million tulips, so that you can see a field of tulips in the background of Munchkin
Holy
Land.
shit! Wow,
9 million tulips. Yeah, they were committed to this. So they really went all out in making this a visual feast, like from one corner of the screen to the other, and it is an absolute delight. Also, I mean, I have to give the performances credit; they are wonderful performances. They're really, really, really good. And they're very nuanced, and they're very believable. And that's good, Burnie, because this movie got slammed with some pretty weird warnings in the UK.
It did. I'm glad you brought that up.
those?
Yeah, you were saying I should go see the movie. I was saying I don't know if I can, because we were talking about with Red One how the UK has some really weird like ratings warnings they put on things. Like in the US, there's sexual content or nudity, which is my personal favorite. In the UK, we saw Red One, and it had a warning for implied strong language. And
right, like the strong language doesn't actually happen, but you know that if they hadn't cut right before that, it would have happened.
Right, and for this one, Ashley, I'm seeing the weirdest warnings on this one. There's an actual warning out there that it contains characters who have green skin. Why is that a warning?
Yeah, there are. So this is a warning that the BBFC has put out, that it contains scenes of discrimination against those with green skin. And that in itself can feel a little bit silly, but when you get into the context of the movie, it makes a lot more sense. So it's this movie's got some very strong allegories. C.S. Lewis would love it, okay? It's got, so first of all, it's a stand-in for, I think in the original stage production, it was more of a stand-in for anti-Semitism, because a lot of the musical was written by Jewish people, and the original character Elphaba was played by Idina Menzel, who is Jewish, but now it's being played by Cynthia Erivo, who is a person of color, and so it's like a different they're kind of calling it's a stand-in for discrimination of racism or sort of religious persecution. But basically, people are being persecuted or discriminated against because of something they don't necessarily control, right? Because of the way that they look. So in that context, it makes a lot more sense. The green makes it sound silly because it's like, oh no, people with green skin.
You adding the nuance and the explanation to it makes it make a lot more sense. I was just like, really? This is what we're upset about? It almost sounded like what the warning was we have to warn people that there's an actress who doesn't have green skin who made herself green skinned, like green face or something like that. That's what it sounded like to me. Like it was, I did not understand it.
That's why the warning sounds silly without the context. But there's also, I think, warnings about like discrimination against animals because there's talking animals in the film. That's more of the allegory, and people are not nice to these talking animals, and that could be distressing. And so there's a lot of these warnings that seem very strange. Once you see the movie, they don't seem strange at all because the allegory is not exactly subtle.
Yeah, we want to be very nice to animals, especially during Thanksgiving holiday season when we're so kind to animals, especially when they burned down our house. Did you hear about this this person who has, I'm assuming it's a guy, had a $4 million mansion in Connecticut. And I'm going to stress the word had because he burned down his mansion frying a turkey in his garage.
I did hear about that. I've seen a lot of videos over this Thanksgiving period of people deep frying their turkeys, and they're all outside with this huge space, and they have these elaborate processes for lowering a turkey into this deep fryer, and they're kind of ridiculous. These turkeys are putting out insane amounts of flame. Is that how turkeys get deep fried? Is that what that looks like, or is this all some sort of elaborate ruse?
So theoretically, what you're supposed to do is you have this giant stock pot. And so every turkey is a different size, as you know, Ashley. And so what you're supposed to do is the safest way to do it is days before you fry the turkey, you're supposed to put water into the stock pot and then put the turkey in so you see the change in the volume. So when you go to put oil in, you don't put any oil in that will then overflow the top once you add your turkey in. The problem with that is the turkey's also supposed to be perfectly dry when you put it into the boiling or the hot oil, because as you can imagine, if you have a pocket of water and suddenly that bursts into steam, you get all these like bursts and bubbles and things like that. You don't want that either. So it's kind
right. And turkeys are not known for being bone dry when you take them like out of their plastic to cook.
Yeah, or brined or anything like that too. Yeah, so it's already a complex process, and I don't think a lot of people do it. And I think when people add in the turkey, they eyeballed the volume, and either they don't have enough oil, or in most cases they have too much oil. It goes over the top and it goes straight down to the flame burner and ignites itself, and then you've got a huge problem on your hands. And a lot of people, I mean, how many times have we seen videos online too when there's a grease fire and people have never, ever, ever had any training of how to handle that? They all like dump water on it, which turns it into a nightmare instantaneously. So yeah, so I'm not exactly sure the specifics of this incident. All we know is that a $4 million Connecticut mansion burned to the ground because of a fried turkey. Those two things just don't go together, fried turkey and $4 million mansions.
Well, and it sounds like they were trying to fry it in the garage. So that does seem like mistake number one, right?
Yeah,
there.
sure. You're in an open space. You got your ventilation and all that stuff. It's just like, yeah, when your garage burns down and your house is attached to it, you've got a problem on your hands.
Kind of go out and do it in the middle of the cul-de-sac like normal Americans.
I believe their Christmas shopping, their Christmas shopping will be curtailed a little bit, Ashley, due to them replacing their burned down house now.
Oh, speaking of Christmas shopping, Bernie, should we make a little teeny tiny announcement?
Should we do a little bit of advertising for ourselves here? Sure, why not?
Let's do a little bit of Christmas advertising. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Somewhere online store. We are launching our online shop. Finally, we've been working on it for a really long time, and the stars have finally aligned, so we're able to launch our online store. It's just got a couple things in it that we're trying to be very careful and very conscientious about what we put in the store. So it's a lot of things like, reusable metal water bottles, stainless steel water bottles, or ceramic mugs, things that you can use over and over again to really, be another soldier in the war on the planet.
Sit out in your driveway and watch your neighbor's house burn down and enjoy a nice cool drink while you watch their fried turkey inferno go up.
Yeah, so we're launching the store today for patrons, members of our Patreon who also have a discount in the store, and then it'll be open for everyone tomorrow if you want to get your holiday shopping on and buy yourself a little something nice for Christmas.
So please go check it out if you're a member of the Patreon. We'll talk about it tomorrow when it launches for the public as well. But as always, we appreciate your support to help keep this podcast going. All right. Well, Ashley, who do we have to thank for lighting our garage on fire today?
I would like to say a big thanks to Armando Cruz and Andy Pandy for lighting our fire today. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere. We really appreciate it.
All right. Well, that does it for us today, December 4th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.